Hey, Songtown, let's talk about writing the song in the room. Marty, years ago, there was a band called Dr. Hook, and one of the artists, singers in the band, he was doing a Broadway show, a one-man Broadway show in New York.
Oh, cool.
On Broadway. I mean, where else would you do a Broadway show?
Off Broadway.
And he told me this interesting thing that changed a lot of creativity for me. He said that when he goes out every night, he goes, well, some nights I would go out and maybe I was sad because something happened that day in my life. Then maybe the next night I would go out and I would be ecstatic because something great happened. And he said, I would say the same lines, but approach it from however I was feeling. Like he didn't try to make himself feel another way. He would say those exact same lines, but from the perspective of how he felt that day.
That's cool.
And I was like, whoa, that is really powerful. And so I started applying that in the writing room. And then fast forward a few years later, I'm in the room with Darius Rucker from Hootie and the Blowfish. First time we wrote together. And I climb on his tour bus to write. And he's like, well, what are we going to write today? And I looked at him and was like, I don't feel like writing today, which is...
Let's stop for just a note. Do not say that to artists that you write with.
It's not the thing to say to an artist the first time you meet them. But he knew this same philosophy. He goes, what's going on? What's wrong? And I was like, well, last night I broke up with this girl that I'd been dating for a year. And I've been second guessing myself. And he's like, man, we all do that. So I said, really? And he said, yeah, I still think about somebody from back in grade school years ago and wonder how they're doing. I was like, really? He's like, yeah, don't think I don't. And I was like, So I got out my phone and he probably thought I was texting my ex-girlfriend to get back together with her. But I was writing that down, don't think I don't. And the next morning, woke up, we're going to write a song. And I'm like, pull that out. And just this chorus came to me of Don't Think I Don't Think About It. Became his first #1 song. And it all happened because I didn't show up and go, I've got to be positive today. This is my big opportunity. I just went with how I was feeling. And then we turned that into something powerful. So that's my take on writing the song in the room is learning to not pretend that something else should be happening when the room is telling you this should be happening.
Yeah, I walked into a co-write one time and I had never met this woman and I just said, hey, how you doing? And she said, not so great. And I said, what's the matter? And she said, well, last night I told my husband I wanted a divorce. And I was like, oh, wow. Do you need to talk about it? And she said, yeah, I don't know. But she said, yeah, I told him that I wanted a divorce and he started crying. And she said, that's the first time I've ever seen him cry. And I said, what did you say to him? And she said, why start now? And
that's
I was
pretty
like,
cold.
and I said, okay, I'm sorry you're hurting, but we have to write a song called Why Start Now?
Yeah, it's a great title.
And it turned into a great song because it was what she was passionately feeling and what she was going through. And so one of the questions I love to ask in a co-write is just, hey, what's everybody feeling today? Yeah. Because I want to find out what is that emotion in the room. Is there some sadness? Is there, whatever? And I wrote Let Me Down Easy I was going through a divorce that day and the two co-writers were divorcing each other. And
I didn't mean to laugh at your pain, but
you were laughing.
But that is an unusual situation.
But what we wrote was what we wanted. It was what we were hoping for. So all of us were hoping to find new love down the road.
Yes.
And so
you weren't ignoring the way you felt.
Right.
You were just taking it to the next level. Instead of writing a whiny song about how horrible things are, You were like, well, let's write about what we wish would happen in the future.
Yeah. So you can take that emotion that's in the room and you can do the opposite of it, or you can do what you hope happens after you get through that emotion, or you can just deal with, how you're feeling right then.
Yeah. The next one for me would be learning to just pay attention to the conversation in the room. The first time I wrote with John Wiggins, great songwriter, I'm trying to remember what, Who Are You When I'm Not Looking?
Mm-hmm.
You remember that song? Great song. He also wrote Tequila Makes Her Clothes Fall Off, which was a brilliant song. But I'd never met him before, and we're sitting down to writing, and he just started telling me about his life, and it was like one bad thing after the other would happen, and then this happened, and this happened. And then at one point he looked up to me, he's like, yeah, I hate to admit it, but my life's been a country song. And I was like, whoa, we are writing that. You can tell me the rest of your story later. But the second he said it, I was like, oh yeah. So we finished that song, pitched it to Chris Cagle, became the title track for an album. And all because he was just telling me his life story. And it was nothing more than me just wanting to get to know who he was, you know?
Yeah. No, that's great. And you are great at that. You know, when Clay and I write, he will often, like, I'll say something and you'll start singing that, what I just said, you know, and it just reminds me that, hey, there's songs in this conversation. You know, I think sometimes
because they're
we
real.
Forget. Yeah.
When it comes out of a conversation about a real situation, then there's an energy to it that goes beyond just contriving a song.
Yeah, I never thought about it that way, but that's right.
What's next?
All right, so number 3 is explore your co-writer's ideas. You know, sometimes if you're not feeling something, there can be a temptation to, like, just kind of gloss over what they say.
Right.
But I think it's important to, if somebody throws something out that they're excited about, go, why are they excited about this?
Yeah.
You know, what's behind this that makes them so excited about it? What am I not getting? I was in a co-write recently, and my co-writer threw out a really different title, and my first response was, how can we make that into a song? But I started asking him questions, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh, okay, I get it now. You know, that could be a really cool song, you know? So, and the idea was band kid in a football town. And, you know, my first response was, that's a weird title, you know? But
I get it. I was a band kid in a football
yeah.
town.
So, but as we started talking about it, he was like, yeah, you know, if you're the kid that just doesn't quite fit in, or you don't, you know, everybody's excited about this thing and you're not a part of that. And so we wrote a really cool song about kind of feeling like you're on the outside of life and looking in sometimes.
This is funny because I can think of 2 instances where co-writers threw out ideas and I'm like, I don't know about that. And then I'm thinking one in particular, Darius Rucker and Frank Rogers, who was his producer, we were writing, and they did not have a romantic song on their record. I'd heard the record, it was almost finished. And so I threw out the idea, let's write a romantic song. And so they loved that. They recognized they didn't have that on the project. And then Frank, the producer, throws out, he goes, I got a title, History in the Making. I was like, it just didn't strike me as being romantic. Like, it didn't conjure up like glass of wine and a fireplace and, you know, and so, but there was this voice inside of me and said, wait a minute, just explore this idea. Yeah. And we turned it into a romantic song, became a hit song for Darius Rucker. But it's that thing, learning to not shut down the excitement in the room. Yeah. You know, sometimes you got to see where it goes. You can direct it. Like, I eventually got them back to a little bit more of a place that I wanted to go, which made it more interesting because I would have just gone there immediately. But now we had a song that started here and worked its way over here, and it ended up being more interesting that way.
Yeah, no, that's great. The next one, I think, is, you know, be willing to ditch an idea if there's something better in the room, you know? And this was illustrated to me powerfully one time. I was writing with Jason Matthews, and we were working on this same song for 2 days. And by lunchtime on the second day, we had not made any progress. We were frustrated. And so we went to lunch, and on the way back, he said, do you like that thing we're working on? And I said, no, I thought you liked it. He said, I don't like it. And so...
neither one of you really wanted to be the first one to say, I don't like this.
Yeah, so it can be hard to give up on a song that you think is in the room or the song that you started, But I think what we did that day was we were just like, well, let's get rid of that song. We don't have to finish that. And Jason said, let's write a song people can make out to. So we wrote Must Be Doing Something Right, which is still my biggest song. And it's all because we were willing to give up on something that wasn't working in the room.
Right.
And so since then, I have learned that if we're working on something and it's just not coming together and we're not feeling it, I'm going to get rid of that thing and find something that we do feel and we're excited about.
You were a room whisperer.
A room whisperer. Never thought about it that way.
That's our job, is to figure out what the room is whispering to us that day. And there's an energy of things that are meant to happen that day. Yeah. And that's what we got to find.
And that day, for 2 days, that room had been saying, this is not good. Give up on this, But we were kind of determined we're going to finish it, but just because we started it. So I think being willing to give up on something if there's a different energy in the room that wants to go a different direction.
So we got one more.
We do.
And you're good at this one, so I'll let you take the lead on this.
Number 5 is, what if there isn't an idea in the room? What if you sit there for 3 hours talking and nothing comes up? I'm a huge believer in preparation, so I have databases with thousands of song titles in them. I will confess something here. I have been guilty at times of trying to force an idea from my database that I'm excited about and overlooking the song in the room.
Yeah.
But on those days when there doesn't seem to be a song in the room, I try to kind of seed the room with some ideas from my database. So I use that database as kind of my insurance that if a song idea doesn't just pop out from our conversation, I'm ready with lots of ideas that I can throw out that will hopefully prompt something. So on those days when there's not anything that anybody's just feeling and getting excited about, I think it's great to have some ideas as backup to throw out and get the party started.
Yeah, my fail-safe with that was writing with Darius Rucker one time. He was like, what ideas you got today? And I go, I got nothing. And then it hit me, let's write that. But now I can't do that anymore. So if I got nothing, that's when I need to have your plan of having lots of backup, having an arsenal of voice memos with melody ideas that I like, titles, it really helps to be prepared.
Yeah. And disclaimer, I got nothing. It's not the best thing to say to a major artist when you're writing with them.
I've got a history of that.
Yes, you do. All right, everybody. Thanks for being here. We'll see you soon.
Cheers. Hey, thanks for watching. If you appreciate the content, hit the subscribe button and help us grow. Shout out to Sweetwater Music. It's where Marty and I get all our musical gear. Great people. We'll see you guys around town. Right on.